morning, everybody. I guess everybody knows where we'll be going again. It's the book of Numbers. Been here for several weeks now, it seems. Spent a lot of time on Balaam. Did it feel like that to anybody else? I mean, there was a lot of writing in the Bible about Balaam. And he's a bad guy, so I guess God saw fit to us to get a good description of what Balaam and people to come in the future may be like, looking for worldly riches for bad things, or deceiving people, etc., like that, working against God. So we did spend a lot of time on Balaam. I've even thought about it at night sometimes going to sleep, how I spent so much time on Balaam, why it sticks in my mind, but for some reason it has. But anyway, I'm going to move on today. We're going to start in chapter 26. I think we made it to verse 51. I skipped verses 5 through 51, kind of done a summary on them. Of course, if you'll remember back 38 years ago, God instructed the Israelites to do a census account, see how many of them they were, fighting men, etc. And well, here we are at the end of this journey. It's about to start a conquest, and God wants them numbered. And that's what we saw in verses 5 through 51, is these children of Israel and their numbers, a number of fighting men that's ready to fight, go to war, which is going to be necessary for the upcoming events of going into the promised land. They're going to have to fight for some of that. And I think the number was around 600 plus thousand of fighting men. So think on that just a minute. It's easy to just read numbers like I have myself, at times, but there again, kind of laying there at night, drifting off to sleep. Sometimes some things you've been reading and studying, you kind of think about it a little more in depth, it seems like. And I got more of a picture this week when I was like, that's 600,000, and then you got X number of mothers and wives and etc. So there's an estimate on that of how many that would be, maybe 800,000 or something like that, just the women. Then you got children, and then you got that some of that mixed multitude. It might still be mixed in there. I'm not certain of that, but they started out with that mixed multitude, and that's a lot of people. 2.5 to 3 million people when you add them big numbers up like that. And Balaam and the king was up there on top of Pisgah. I think it was Pisgah, when they was looking out there and he was wanting that blessing. And he sees that massive number of Israelites out in that Jordan Valley. That's 2.5 to 3 million people in a camp, and the tabernacle in the middle of all of that. So it is an impressive number. And you think about that number of people leaving Egypt and coming up through that wilderness and wandering in the wilderness like that. And it makes you made me think about other things, They don't just run to the grocery store and get food. They don't just go to the doctor and see the doctor. Man, they've got they need a lot of faith in God to survive that. And of course, we saw a lot that, and another thing I thought, when I said not going to the grocery store, and we know God provided for them the food, the manna. Although it be one thing, God provided for that multitude of people that whole time. And yes, their faith did waver, because that's what God told them at Kadesh Barnea, because of your unbelief. And then they told God, "Oh, you've brought us here, now our children are going to suffer." They're trying to make it look like God was punishing, they're going to harm their children or punish their children and them. But God told them, He goes, "No, your children's going to make it, but you're not." And that's where we're at now with this multitude, is that next generation, save 2 men that's going into the promised land. That's Joshua and Caleb, of course. And so it's just, when you think about that, God provided for this big multitude of people, and don't take it lightly. And when that old king of Moab was wanting that Balaam to curse those people, that was a real fear in that man. To see that, I don't know what the population of Moab was, but I'm going to tell you, when you see that many people coming into your neighborhood, in your land, this is not that big a country there either, too, people. The land of Israel as it is nothing like the size of the United States. I mean, it's a small area when you think about it. And for so much to happen there in that period of time, even today, how that little piece of land is in the news every day. All this years later. But just think, it's just God getting those people from Egypt all the way up there to where we're at on the east side of the Jordan River, getting ready to go into the Promised Land. That was a miracle in itself right there, that those people, just getting that there. So that's where we're at. And what we're about to find, we got to have this census about these people, about the fighting men, because we said we're going into the Promised Land. We're going to have to fight for some of that. And so they're numbered to have that number. But also when they get there, what's God going to reward these people with when they get into the land of milk and honey? Land. We're going to read here in a few minutes about where they're going to get land. Each tribe is going to get land. So these numbers is going to reflect how much land each tribe gets when they get over here into the Promised Land. And then they're going to have a lottery to divide that part up amongst each tribe for their land. We'll see. We'll read that too here. So the census has another purpose here as well, is for them to divide this land up. It's going to be based on the number of people in those tribes. And as you go through, like I said, you can look at these numbers. Some of the tribes' population kind of stayed the same. Some of them went down. Some of them went up over this past 38 years. And that's from a number of things that's happened throughout the 38 years. Some of it's from direct unbelief and God opening the earth up and swallowing some of them in. But they all died. And so anyway, I'm going to start reading verses 57 through 62 of chapter 26. And this is right after we got to all the numbers of people counted. 26, 57 through 62. Find my place here. All right. Make sure I got it. Yeah, 52 through 56. No, I'm going to do 52 through 56 because, here where we're going to divide up the land. Sorry about that. 52 through 56. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Unto these the land shall be divided for an inheritance according to the number of names. There's where I talk about your census being there. The land's going to be divided up according to the number of the people. To many thou shalt give the more inheritance. That makes sense. More people need more inheritance, more land. And to few thou shalt give the less inheritance. And to everyone shall his inheritance be given according to those that were numbered of him. Notwithstanding, the land shall be divided by lot, according to the names of the tribes of their fathers shall they inherit. According to the lot shall the possession thereof be divided between many and few. So we're going to use this lot. That's like drawing of straws or something. That's what it means, like that, by the lot. And now I'm going to read 57 through 62. Here where I was going now. And these are they that were numbered of the Levites. Now, how much land is the Levites going to get? None. There we go. That's because they're going to live in the cities. And think about it. They're not numbered in that fighting force either. And they're not going to be numbered for a land inheritance because they're supposed to take care of the tabernacle, do the work of God around the tabernacle. And another thing, they're not counted in that number of the fighting force either, because what happens when the fighting force goes out to war and there's battles? What happens in battles? People die. And what happens when you're exposed in the old times, in the old law here, God says, when you're exposed to dead bodies and death, they're not clean anymore. So they have to be clean. They got to go through the processes. Now, who's going to do all that work? That'd be the Levites that make all that possible. So they're not going to be on the battlefield, and they're not going to inherit land, but they will get some assignment in cities that we will see like certain cities sprinkled throughout the land is where they'll dwell, and that'll be their dwelling place in these cities. All right. So let me go on to 62. Okay, and these are the number of the Levites after their families of Gershon, the family of the Gershonites, and the Kohath, and the family of Kohathites. Of Merari, the family of the Merarites. These are the families of the Levites. The family of the Libnites, the family of the Hebronites, the family of the Mahalites, the family of the Mushites, the family of the Kohathites, and Kohath begot Amram. And the name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, who her mother bare to Levi in Egypt, and she bare unto Amram Aaron and Moses and Miriam their sister. Going into a little genealogy there. And unto Aaron was born Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. Remember the two firstborn there? They got in trouble, didn't make it. And then now Eleazar is the high priest because Aaron has passed away. And Nadab and Abihu died, and when they offered strange fire before the Lord, that's we just talked about, and those that were numbered of them were 20 and 3,000, all males from a month old and upward, for they were not numbered among the children of Israel, because there was no inheritance given them among the children of Israel, what we just talked about. So they're not going to give them no inheritance as far as that land, but like I said, they're going to have a place to dwell in the future. They're going to get cities. All right. Now I'm going to read 63 through 65. These are they that were numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, who numbered the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. All right, we're on the east side of Jordan. Looks like our next stop's going to be into Jericho. And I'm sure all y'all are familiar what's going to happen there. There's going to be a battle. So that's coming in the future. So we're getting set up here for that coming in the future. All right. 64. But among these there was not a man of them whom Moses and Aaron the priests numbered, when they numbered the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said of them, they shall surely die in the wilderness, and there was not left a man of them save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. So we talked about that a while ago. Remember at Kadesh, the 12 spies go in. There's only 2 of them come back that had enough faith to say, we can go in this land, we can take it. Yeah, there's giants in there, but they're easier targets because we can hit them. You see what I'm saying? That's why they made it. They didn't look at it with the bad side of it. Them guys said, let's go in and take it. And the other ones, of course, was afraid. And it comes back into my mind when we talk about, think about the number of people that God had them there ready to go into the promised land. Just about what we got now, 2 to 3 million total. 600,000 fighting men that could have went straight up in there and not had to deal with all this. And only 2 come back of the spies. Only 2 men. 2 out of 12 was saying, let's do it. So anyway, but here that got us to this point now. So now I'm going to read, starting in chapter 27. All right, let's see here. The people instructed, the laws of inheritance. Yeah, we've got a couple things here. The wandering, of course, is about to end. We're preparing to go into the promised land. Our conquest is about to start, taking the land of taking the promised land, going to start at Jericho, and then we've got some inheritance issues here going to be clarified by God. It's going to have to deal with kind of, I guess, women's rights, because until this point, this is like one of the earliest cases of women's rights. In that part of the land at that time, the firstborn male would get all the land. You know, that was back in the law like that. But we're going to run into a little circumstance here. What if there's no firstborn male, only daughters? Should the family lose its inheritance because of that? And they go before Moses, and that's what we're about to read and study about that. And then, of course, we got Joshua's about to take over the reins of this conquest, because Moses had gone just about as far as he's going to go. And he's about to go up to Mount Nebo and meet God. But anyway, I'm going to read 1 through 5. Then came the daughters of Zaphala. I can say that and then I forget. Anyway. Zaphunah, I forget anyway. The son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Mashur, and the son of Manasseh. Of the families of Manasseh, and this here, you remember, Manasseh was the son of Joseph, one of the sons of Joseph. So something's happened. We're going to find out here something happened. There ain't going to be no first male born here to inherit his part, part of the land here as we go up. So And these are the names of his daughters, Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tisra. Okay, kind of like we do now with names. Some people, everybody start their kid's name with R or something like that, but these are all ends with la. I guess you got to saying them and make like a song. But anyway, verse 2. And they stood before Moses and before Eleazar. So here they are talking about done this census. The word's getting out. We're going to divide the land up amongst the people. And these ladies are deciding, well, what's going to happen to our father's stuff? You know, he got no sons. We need to do something. So, give it to them. They're going up to petition Moses up here. They're going up to Moses and get clarification. It don't say they went around backbiting in the crowd and throughout the camp. Where this is going to take place is here at the tabernacle. They're going to take it here before God and Moses, taking it up with Moses before God at the tabernacle, just like it should be done. Okay, and they stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest and before the princes of all the congregation by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered them together against the Lord in the company of Korah. So what they're saying here is, he didn't do nothing like those of Korah did, and they died in the wilderness because God took them. The ground opened up and swallowed them. He died in his own sin. It's like a normal death. I mean, any man at that time is going to, if he dies of natural causes, he dies in his own sin, is what that's saying. And what's the purpose of the sacrificial system? It's because all those men, they're all sinners. That's why they're always got these sacrifices going that we're going to read about a little more in the future. 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. That's because of the condition of these men. And of course, some of them were worse than just the average, and that's the ones that ground opened up and swallowed them. So, I mean, there's no hope for those at all. But anyway, he's died pretty much just average, like the average guy. He didn't rebel against God or anything like that. He just expired, which, God told them they were going to expire. They wasn't going to make it to the promised land because of the group's unbelief. All right, so we're there. All right, and they're bringing this to the point. All right. Together against the Lord company, but died in his own sin, had no sons. Why should the name of our father be done away with from among his family? So why should, if he's got no sons, our family name's just going to cease to exist, So, they're thinking they'd like to see their family name continue on. So they petitioned Moses in front of God at the tabernacle here. And because he hath no son, give us therefore a possession among the brethren of our father. They're asking for some inheritance. And Moses brought their cause before the Lord. Now, that's the good thing about Moses. Moses could have simply took his staff and hit the floor and said, well, we'll do this. But he didn't. He done the way it should be done. He's going to inquire of God to see what needs to be done about this situation. Because if you'll remember, he done had one bad circumstance when he got mad at them rebels and smacked that rock. And then he said, let us give them water. And he kind of took the credit for that. He didn't give God's credit. And that's how he's going to end up in the shape he's in now, of course, But he done it right here. So give it to Moses. He took it before God. All right. Now, finish. Yeah, the cause before the Lord. That's all of that verse. Now, start with verse 6 and read through 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, The daughters of Zephalahed speak right. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their fathers' brethren, and thou shalt cause the inheritance of their fathers to pass unto them. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then he shall give his inheritance to his brethren, kind of stepping on down the family line here. And if he have no brethren, then he shall give his inheritance to his father's brethren. And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it, and it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment as the Lord commanded Moses. All right, so he just stepped it on down. And God told him, this needs to be done. This, after Moses inquired with God, it needs to be done. So new law being created right here, or to go with the law is the daughters will inherit the land if no sons are present. Make sure I didn't leave that. And we'll see that this becomes important in the future, why this situation come up. But I'll just let you dwell on that because there needs to be a line of inheritance as we move in through the future as it comes. And we all know what Satan's always up against, trying to stop what God says is going to happen in the future. So that's why this is in here is really important moving forward. So, But now I'm going to read 12 through 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, Get thee up into this Mount Abarim, and see the land which I have given unto the children of Israel. And when thou hast seen it, thou also shalt be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother was gathered. For ye rebelled against my commandments in the desert of Zin, in the strife of the congregation, to sanctify me at the water before their eyes. That is the water of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. And that's what we just talked about a second ago. Moses done right a while ago when going to God and for this, but on this at that point there, they had been pushing Moses for 38 years, and I could see his frustration, and so he strikes the rock, and it does, in essence, he don't give God credit for providing the water, and that's where we're going to be here. It's kind of a sad situation to me that we're going to read, because Moses has been through all of this. Think about it. He's been through all this, all the way from Egypt. God's used him to bring these Israelites up through the wilderness and all that, and he's going to be able to stand on the mount there, and he's going to see the promised land from there, but he's not going to make it in there. He's not going to make it in there. But got a question for everybody. Does Moses make it to the promised land? Does he make it to Israel? Now, this is a trick question. Anybody got a answer? What about Mount Transfiguration? It's just like I said, a trick question. He was with Jesus and Elijah at Mount of Transfiguration. But physically, no, not like he was here. But it was just a little question there. But anyway, now I'm going to read 15 through 17. No, wait a minute. I skipped some verses. I got to watch that. I do that sometimes. I got to read 12 through, make sure. No, I got that. Now I'm going to do 15. All right, 15 through 17. I don't want to leave a part out. I do that sometimes. And then Leah gets on to me. And Moses spake unto the Lord, saying, Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation. All right, so Moses here in this point, he knows what's coming. So he's saying, but he's thinking, let these people have somebody to lead them. Let somebody take over the reins and lead them into the promised land. So he's still thinking about these people. Through all he's been through, he's still thinking about his people. All right. 17, which may go out before them, and which may go in before them, and which may lead them out, and which may bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord be not as sheep which have no shepherd. So like I said, he don't want them to just be without a leader and going into this land lost and upside down and not knowing what they're doing. And Joshua, he's one of the two that went into as spies and come back. And so, he's a man strong in faith. I think he's a good choice, too. So, anyway, 18 through 23. I keep losing my place. And the Lord said unto Moses, Take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him. And set him before Eleazar the priest. That's the son of Aaron. He's the new priest, because Aaron had passed away. And before all the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. And thou shalt put some of thine honor upon him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. And he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall ask counsel for him after the judgment of Urim before the Lord. At his word shall they go out, and at his word shall they come in, both he and all the children of Israel with him, even all the congregation. And Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and he took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation. And he laid his hands upon him and gave him charge of the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. So, this is a display. It's like, this is under God's approval that Joshua is going to be the new leader, putting that up there. And if you remember that Urim, and I'm not sure how that process went. When I mentioned that Urim in there, there was 2 stones in a pouch on the high priest's chest, the Urim and the Thummim. So that's what that's referring to there. And that a lot of times the high priest evidently used those stones to help make decisions, according to God's will. I guess if they pulled it out, it was this way, and it pulled the other stone out, it was going to be this way. So, but anyway, official transfer of honor to Joshua, and it's going to be by Moses, and it's for everybody to see in front. So there shouldn't be no doubt at who's going to be in charge moving into this promised land, and that's really critical. Think about it, because we done had one uprising back years ago when Kohath was kind of wanting to, why don't we have a more powerful position, and instead of our position, we want to be more involved in making decisions. They questioned Moses' and Aaron's authority. So you can see people's tendency. These people, the Israelites' tendency from the past. If it's not clarified and made real clear, that they might get in a situation they start questioning authority. So this display in front of everybody, in front of the tabernacle for all to see, and being done by Moses should be enough to keep these people behind Joshua as they go into the promised land. All right. And we're going to start with 28. All right, what do we got here in 28? We're going to have a summary of the holy days coming up. We got the different celebration of the different holidays, starting with Passover, moving forward. We got daily sacrifices, which I needed to get cleared up in my mind a little bit as far as morning and evening. We're going to read about that. And sometimes on holidays, there's a step up a little bit more of the sacrifices. Of course, the Passover, looking at this, when we start talking about this Passover, is in March and April, roughly. It kind of fluctuates back and forth. A lot of stuff back then, what the Israelites, their holidays and dates was set around new moons, beginning of the month, when the new moon. They would actually watch and see when the new moon was going to be there, and then they'd set their dates accordingly. All right. And remember the Passover there, March or April, kind of different. It's got a more fulfilling feeling when you think about the first day or the first month in their calendar year. What better time to do it in the spring when things is new, things are blooming, there's life. And unfortunately for us, when it's January 1st, it don't feel like nothing's new to me. I'll tell you, it's always just cold. New Year's ain't that big a celebration to me. But for God's people back in this economy, when this farming economy, these celebrations and this time of year, they've went through the whole winter from God's provision and God had provided them from the harvest from the year before. And there's the planting of seeds. We're going to see the barley is planted first. It's the first to harvest. That's big. That's important when you've got a farm community. When everybody, it's really important. And people today miss that. They miss that connection with God, because it's only through the blessings of God that the food we even eat today, no matter how complicated and mechanized and down to the science that it is now, you see all these shows about hybrid strains and thousands of acres and combines that drive themselves and harvest and all that. with all that ingenuity and all that technology and supposed security that you're going to eat your next meal to the point we don't even have to think about it like these people did. They thank God. If they had any sense at all and they had any faith in God, they thank God for their provision, because with all that technology that I've just talked about and we have, what happens if the weather changes? What if it turned cold when it was supposed to be warm? Or it turned dry when it was supposed to be rain and they couldn't irrigate it enough? Somebody's going to go back and thank God for the provision that he had given the years prior to that. No matter how much they might be forced to remember that one of these days, like I said, because it's all in God's hands at the very start. If that seed germinates and all that and it grows, it's because of God. Man's just tweaked the process and made it more supposedly plentiful, but it could all change in the twinkling of an eye. It could change. So anyway, so to me, that's what I'm thinking about these holidays, the first barley, and then the wheat's going to come later, etc. And then, so I'm going to read verses 1 through 8. Chapter 28, verses 1 through 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel, and say unto them, My offering and my bread for my sacrifices made by fire, for a sweet savor unto me shall ye observe to offer unto me in their due season. A lot of this we went over in the previous chapters, the sacrifice system. And thou shalt say unto them, This is the offering made by fire, which ye shall offer unto the Lord. That's a burnt offering. 2 lambs of the first year without spot by day for a continual burnt offering. One thing we don't want to forget, even though it's repetitive about this sacrificial system, is that sentence right there, ye shall offer unto the offering made, let's find it, without spot, day by day, every day, without spot. That means a perfect. And what does that mean? God wants the best, day by day. Not the leftovers, not the warmed overs. He wants the best. He's telling them to give him the best day by day. And we're going to see it's day by day. And what happens in the future is the kingdom of Israel, they get to the point where they don't give God their best, and they just do this system, the law, and the laws of sacrifice. It just gets to be a repetitive thing that they do without even loving their hearts for God, that they just do it to be doing it, to be seen to be doing it. No true feelings in it at all. And then that ends, that's where the kingdom starts to fall apart. But we'll get there one of these days. All right. A continual burnt offering. Verse 4, the one lamb shalt thou offer in the morning, and the other lamb thou shalt offer at even. And a 10th part of an ephah of flour for a meat offering, that's grain, mingled with the 4th part of an hin of beaten oil. And I think that was like a gallon and a half or something like that. It is a continual burnt offering which was ordained in Mount Sinai for a sweet savor and a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord. All right, and that sweet savor, there's the aroma. It's a picture of like the aroma when that is burning on the fire. Who's in heaven above at the time? That lifts up to God. It's accepted by God if God is pleased, but it'll eventually turn into a stench because of what I told you later. If it's not from the heart and it's not for the right reasons, God is not going to find it acceptable. It's going to become a stench in his nose. But as of now, they're doing this, and it's pleasing to God. And the drink offering there shall be the 4th part of a hin for the one lamb. In the holy place shalt thou cause the strong wine to be poured unto the Lord for a drink offering. And the other lamb shalt thou offer at even, as the meat offering of the morning, and as that drink offering thereof, thou shalt offer it a sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord. Key thing just to remember here, it's hard to keep this sacrifice stuff in your mind because it's all foreign and strange to me. But the one thing to remember through all of this is they needed to give God their best, not the leftovers. Give God the best. So that's the key thing to remember that. All right, now I'm going to read 9 and 10. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot. There we go, without spot again. Give them the best. and 2/10 deals of flour for a meat offering mingled with oil and drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, beside the continual burnt offerings at the drink offering. So the day of Sabbath, the Sabbath day is a day of rest. A little more was expected from God at that point in time. So it's just a little more to add to it. Daily offering actually was doubled there when you figure it out. Now I'm going to read 11 through 15 right quick, and we'll call it quits. And in the beginnings of your months, there we go, these new months at the beginning, like I said, determined by the moons, ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bucks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot, and 3/10 deals of flour for a meat offering mingled with oil for 1 bullock, and 2/10 deals of flour for a meat offering mingled with oil for 1 ram, and a 7/10 deal of flour mingled with oil for a meat offering unto 1 lamb, for a burnt offering of sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord. 14, and their drink offering shall be half a hin of wine unto a bullock, and a 1/3 part of a hin unto a ram, and a 1/4 part of hin unto a lamb. This is the burnt offering of every month throughout the months of the year. And 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering unto the Lord shall be offered, beside the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. So, there again, new month, new moon, and 1 kid goat at the first of the month. Like I said, at the first of the month, a little more added to the daily. But the key thing to remember in all that, it's hard to keep, like I said, give God the best. They needed to give God their best without blemish, and that's the key thing. So, all right, let me dismiss us. Dear God, thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for your word.